It's almost like the impetus to tell stories about a character who is full-grown and in a stable, happy relationship, and revert them to a state where they can just fuck all kinds of women.
Yeah.
Is like a bad idea, and you just shouldn't do it.
It is almost like that. You might even say it is like that. But
why does anyone want to? Like, I don't understand. Because it's now okay. So now it's twice, and it's like the two flagship characters of each
respective
universe.
publisher. Yeah.
Well, if you pretend that Superman is the flagship character of DC.
Well, no, they're mascots, right?
Yeah, he's the preeminent superhero.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just as Spider-Man is the preeminent Marvel hero, and they did the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, why? But both of those ideas are inexplicable.
Well, actually, there is a link. Let me tell you what it is. When Joe Quesada used to work for DC, everyone at DC was like, Superman and Lois shouldn't be married. We made a huge mistake.
Why?
Right? I don't know. But... right? Because it's not like there are any good stories that have any staying power that feature Clark playing the field. The only things that existed were Superman kissing Wonder Woman that one time in the 80s and that weird train wreck of relationship he had with Lana. That's kind of it.
Well, then New 52.
In the New 52, they were able to go, there, we did it. But that's after Quesada had already left DC. No, Quesada was in the bullpen during the time when they were like, oh my God, this stupid marriage with Superman, it's bullshit. And then when Joe Quesada unceremoniously left DC and went to Marvel, he was like, I'm taking that ill will about marriages with flagship characters over to them. I emailed Joe Quesada during One More Day, well, leading up to One More Day. And I was like, please don't do this. Like, I'm hearing rumblings that you're doing this. Please don't. And he got me back. And
he replied?
Yeah, he replied. I could read the email.
What? Why would he have done that?
I don't know.
He must have gotten hundreds of emails like that.
Hundreds of emails, but he saw mine and was like, that guy. And wrote me like a 6-paragraph essay about like why Superman shouldn't be married and how the marriage ruined the Superman character for a long time and for many readers. And I'm like, you are comparing apples to oranges, my friend.
What are you talking about?
Superman and Spider-Man are not the same thing. And he's like, au contraire. They are the same thing because they are the preeminent representations of the universes. And I'm like, what's happening?
No, but no.
Oh, God.
Like, listen, I like the Lois and Clark relationship.
Everyone does.
I like it, but I could see the bullpen being like, it's really difficult for Clark to justify Clark being with one person when he has to save the entire world sometimes.
And Superman is kind of boring, and so it's like, how can I mine any fun
but you know
character
what I mean?
stuff out of it?
If you think about it from a moral perspective, like he's gonna put more weight over saving this one person over the rest of the world. Like I can see where they might be
he's married to the world.
Yeah, also he's gonna like outlive her, so it's gonna be like
so it's a lot.
Like Arwen's gonna have to be like miserable when Aragorn finally dies. So it's like,
but Spider-Man's like a guy. He's just a guy, and he takes care of New York.
Right? Yeah.
Let him be married.
That's not the same thing.
Let him be happy.
It's like
just one thing.
It's like Quesada was like, but they both wear like red and blue.
Yeah.
They're the same person.
No, for him, they're totemic representations of their respective universes.
Right.
And also,
they should always be single
if they're not playing the field.
But that just sounds like to me like you don't understand. Either you don't understand the characters or you don't understand why stories work.
Well, and that's why he stopped emailing me because my manifesto was basically like, you fundamentally misunderstand the Spider-Man character and you're conflating him with Superman for some reason. And you're like, yes, they are both each other's postage stamps and logos.
Yeah.
But they couldn't be more diametrically separate in terms of their approaches to the problem. They happen to be on the same side of morality, but they're completely different human beings. Like one is one and one isn't, for example. And suddenly he stopped emailing me back. But like it went on way too long, by the way.
That's so weird because probably because your first email was like really articulate, and he was like,
and they continued to be. I wasn't
this guy's smart. So I need to explain to him,
and then maybe he'll like disseminate the information to them among the rabble.
Why convince this guy?
This is, by the way, this is
insane.
This is pre-Comic Pop. I had no influence whatsoever.
That's why I'm baffled. Like now it would make sense.
Yeah.
Then it's like he just plucked your
This
email out of the. And there must have been
he
something
just
going
assumed you're
on.
like a 45-year-old person.
Right. He's like, well, this guy knows. He's my age.
Yeah.
Like I'm a child.
what's weird is like you were having two different arguments because you were talking about the character and he was like, no, but he's not a character, he's a mascot.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, even then I understand. Like, you know.
Well, by that train of thought, Mickey shouldn't be married to Minnie.
Right. He's not. They're not married.
You know what I mean.
But
He shouldn't be in a relationship.
Yeah,
with
and
her.
if they got married, I would make sure I undid that shit right away.
I get a job over there, and I'd be like, oh no.
Right.
You made those two characters who are always linked together married?
What?
Like officially linked?
Why would you do that? That's really stupid.
It's weird.
I always wanted to think that Mickey was having sex with all kinds of
Daisy
other
Duck
mice. And you just took that off the
awful
table?
cow one?
Like, what?
What?
Like, why would you?
Why would you?
Who thinks like that?
Here's my question. Why do you keep thinking about it?
Yeah.
Like, that's my question.
Right.
It's like, why are you so obsessed with it?
Why is this
You know,
thing
like,
that's totally normal to literally everybody else in the world so wrong to you?
Yeah. And,
Maybe you're the problem.
And even then, like, you know, as a Spider-Man fan, you know, like, when I see Spider-Man in media, every single interpretation of that character, be it TV, movies, whatever, is like, well, Mary Jane is like the Lois Lane of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So like, they need to be together. And I'm like, so it's not as totemic and fundamental that Spider-Man is Archie Andrews, right? Like,
No.
it's actually that as far as everyone else is concerned, the majority of people who are aware of the character, he is, for all intents and purposes, if not married, star-crossed.
Right. Yes.
And yet,
I think it's because people love that idea. And so as soon as you did it, you couldn't undo it.
Yeah.
Because people, no, that's right.
Right, but I'm old, and I remember when he wasn't. Like, I remember when Mary Jane was but a drop in the bucket of the tail that Peter was getting.
Right.
And I find it repugnant that this thing that was new to me when I was reading
became the status
quo.
Right. But
And so I'm going to shake up this franchise.
Now a little bit sometimes with characters.
Am I like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm also not delusional.
That's true. No, you're not.
I'm not like, well, this is a fundamental totemic thing that needs to exist. I'm like, no, I like it the way that was.
Well, you know what? You know what's funny
not
too.
Jeff Johns. I'm not gonna be like, Hal Jordan's back, and actually, that big thing they did, it's a demon that made him act like that. Because I remember when it wasn't like that.
So I just have to put it back any way that I can.
Any way I can, however it takes. I don't care how bad and stupid it is.
Too, because it's like when you think about what other people who maybe don't like the marriage think of, they're like, it's either Gwen Stacy. I'm like, she dead.
She's been dead for longer than she was ever alive.
She's dead. And then there's Felicia, but they always make sure to write Felicia. Like, she's the worst person.
Oh, don't
for
forget,
him.
Felicia be crazy.
Like, she does not bring out the good in him.
Right.
So it's like, what is the nostalgia for then?
Yeah. Yeah. Who's your
chaos.
ideal woman? And that's it.
Not knowing.
For them, they're like, I don't have an ideal woman for Peter Parker. There isn't one.
He shouldn't ever be with a woman for more than like a week.
There is also, around the same time, this prevailing opinion about Spider-Man at Marvel, editorially and creatively speaking, and I've heard people that I have deep respect for say the same nonsense. And it is, when Peter Parker's up, Spider-Man's down. When Spider-Man's up, Peter Parker's down. And that's how you write the character. And I'm like, no, it isn't. It isn't so much that I'm offended that you said that to me. And it's like, but it is for as long as Spider-Man hasn't been married. Because I remember when that was a thing for the first 16 issues of Spider-Man in 1963. Like, I'm sorry, but no. These ideals that they think are totemic and enduring have only become so because they arbitrarily were put in place by people who remembered it when they were children. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but like, you have to acknowledge that that's what it is. Not like, this is a true and fundamental thing about the kid. No, it's a thing that you like.
Yeah.
It's a thing you like, and that's okay. And it's okay.
And that was the case for like a certain like limited span of time.
And for the narrow field when you
it did happen.
Read it did happen.
Right.
Or
but also
like
other
that.
things happened that weren't that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's funny because it's like, here's a version of Spider-Man that, regardless of how you feel about him, is wildly popular.
Right.
But in the video games, like, Peter Parker and Spider-Man are down
all
together.
the time. Yes.
They're up together or they're down together.
Yeah.
And no one seems to have an issue with that.
No.
And it seems to be, again, very successful.
Absolutely. Yes. Those video games, you can't argue, are successful.
Yeah.
Aren't successful.
But it's also like that's like more common in any form of like artistic expression.
Yes.
Where it's like things are down or they're up. They're not in this like hybrid state where it's like constant equilibrium.
Right.
That doesn't seem
because like
accurate.
No, that
to
would be
fiction.
like that would be like an arc, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like Peter's like has like this time like period of time where he's just like, wait a minute, is being Spider-Man like ruining my life?
That's every freaking story with Spider-Man for the last 20 years and for the first 20 years. But for the other 40, they weren't.
No, but it's like that's ridiculous. Like to just keep doing that.
It's frustrating and ridiculous, and it's tiring. It was exhausting when it was called Spider-Man 2. Like I was like, oh boy, we're doing this. And it's like, of course we're doing this. We got to do the Spider-Man no more. And I'm like, all right, you know what? Fine. For 90, 120 minutes, let's do that.
One movie.
For one movie, we'll do that. But can we not do that for 3 movies? Oh, we're going to do that for 3 movies.
Yeah, it's just weird because it's like, you know.
And every comic book.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Well, how else are we going to keep it going? We got to snatch something away.
Right.
At this moment of triumph. Otherwise, why would you read the next issue?
For here are 2 generations.
Well, like when they just both be down.
Yeah. Here are 2 generations of Spider-Man fans that know this to be true. Spider-Man is a loner who would never join a team. And Spider-Man is an Avenger. Those are 2 truths that are fundamental to the character depending on who you ask.
Oh,
I rest my effing case.
I guess that's interesting.
Yeah.
I being not a like
I'm like Spider-Man's a Fantastic Four member. Like
I'm like because I don't really read a lot of Spider-Man, but in my head I'm like Spider-Man is at times like remembered and can join teams.
Yes.
But like most of the time everyone kind of forgets he's there until he's absolutely intrinsic to fixing something.
Spider-Man is an idiot clown that the superhero has nothing but disdain for, or he is a seasoned veteran and is absolutely trustworthy.
No.
And usually the linchpin to the plot.
No. There's
Those are 2 other major
right.
stories.
No, I
of
think
Spider-Man.
there's like a middle ground where it's like no, the superhero community recognizes Spider-Man's like longtime run.
Yes.
But at the same time, never thinks of him beyond like being a street level character until he uses his heart and his mind in order to like triumph and is a symbol of hope akin to Captain America.
Well, and what's funny about that is that has not happened in a superhero comic book since Marvel Studios was formed. It's almost like if Spider-Man is integral to a superhero story,
right, he's not allowed.
Sony has access to it.
That
So Spider-Man actually can't be an influential character in the greater Marvel universe. And so he constantly has to be at odds with himself throughout the story, where he can be big and cool, but not popular enough. That's why the Blood Hunt stories don't feature Peter Parker.
Oh my God!
So
they
like-
fucking
so
X-Men
like,
him.
well,
X-Men him, but in a way where they're like,
yo.
we profit from Spider-Man's success, but we also can't allow Spider-Man to get too big lest Sony succeed or out-succeed.
Yo, that means that like there are people out there who think that they're like, no, it's just Miles' time to shine. It's time for him to be there, and it's like, no, that is convenient to keeping Sony out.
Yeah, it's incidental.
Oh.
It's incidental that Miles has any like notoriety or ascension. By the way, you're
Which
also
is like,
getting.
it doesn't matter.
They're also
like,
doing that. Like they're also doing it narratively. Like you'll see scenes. Like there's a sequence in Blood Hunt where they're like, "Thank God you're here, Miles, because Peter sucks." And I'm like, okay. Like there are actually that's a literal panel that I read like from a comic book that came out like what, a week or 2 ago.
Wow. I mean, I guess that's like good for Miles.
Yeah.
Miles fans.
Like,
But
it's good for the
that's
character. And
insane.
it's good.
Right, but
Yeah, but like for all the wrong reasons.
yeah,
It's all the wrong
right. That's like
reasons.
not.
you never want a character to succeed at the expense of another character.
Yeah.
Especially one that is, I don't know, your brand. Like, Spider-Man is not just a character that is beloved. It is also your mascot.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure, and that's the other problem, is like why Amazing Spider-Man is so crappy, like the comic book. Why it has been, the critical community is like, Amazing Spider-Man is bad. And what they mean is it's milquetoast. It is bland. It is homogenized.
Right. There's nothing like exceptional.
There's nothing exceptional
Or amazing about it.
there's nothing
amazing.
exceptional or amazing about that book. And it's because, for one thing, it can't be, like, just financially speaking, because it affects what happens in the movie division. We found out at Marvel that if Spider-Man gets too controversial, when I say that, I mean someone can actually formulate like a strong opinion one way or the other about the book. It affects sales. But we found out that if the book just comes out, it'll sell a certain number regardless, and that number is one that we're very fine with. So as long as we don't upset the apple cart and rock the boat, and we have like the most uncontroversial writers of all time work on it, the book will just come out and it'll make the money, and we don't care. Like, just don't give him any exceptional stories that that catch attention, and don't rock the boat with the character. You know, and you can rock the boat with side characters, because as far as Spider-Man fans aren't just Peter Parker fans. They are fans of Mary Jane. They're fans of J. Jonah Jameson. Like, they're fans of his supporting characters, because Peter Parker is his supporting cast. It's why people were like, Ultimate Spider-Man, J. Jonah Jameson and Uncle Ben are friends. Bro! Like, they're just happy to see anything happening with any of his supporting cast.
Right.
But like, why also in Amazing Spider-Man, it doesn't matter what happens to the supporting cast, because as far as the editorial board is concerned, you could do whatever you want to them. Sony doesn't care what happens to those characters.
Right.
As long as Peter doesn't.
Because they're not named Spider-Man.
Yeah, because they're not named Spider-Man. And why you can create as many Spider-adjacent characters as you can, because that just makes Papa Sony happy. Because then they can show up in a Spider-Verse movie. And it's like, gross. It's hard to be a fan of Spider-Man. It's like why people hate Batman or Spider-Man. It's like, because it's hard to be excited about what is essentially a living IP. It's like being a celebrity that is also a brand. It's like being Sergeant Slaughter, who's a literal man, but is also an action figure. Like, it must be really frustrating to be that man. He is a actual character and a caricature at the same time. Like, Sergeant Slaughter can't like go out and eat too many donuts. People will have opinions. People with money, people with branding will have opinions about what happens to that character. Because it's a person. Like, you can't, like, it's why Mickey Mouse doesn't have any stories. Nobody cares about Mickey Mouse. Nobody has a freaking favorite Mickey Mouse cartoon. Because he does uncontroversial things. He needs to show up. He needs to be on the thing. He needs to be a hidden silhouette on a door somewhere in a park.
In A Christmas Carol.
Right, like, it's not Mickey Mouse as Mickey Mouse.
Right.
It's Mickey Mouse as this other guy.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse is portraying Bob Cratchit.
Right.
Oh,
so you don't learn anything about Mickey Mouse or what his day is like.
That is true.
Yeah.
We rode the ride.
Yeah, and that ride was wholly inoffensive. They don't do anything controversial or...
There's a story.
But if Joe Quesada rode that ride, he'd be like, why is Minnie here?
Right.
Why are they going on a picnic?
The ride would be
Get
about
out.
how their relationship is actually ultimately flawed and shouldn't exist. And like, by the end of it, Mickey would meet some other attractive mouse character.
Right.
Right.
And Minnie could go over there.
And Minnie would go over there, and she'd be happy there. She'd be happier over there anyway. Spider-Man.